Boys Will Be Boys is this incredibly biting satire that's set in the financial world in the City of London. It deals with Astrid, who is a broker, really at the top of her game, who decides to take on board a mentoree, Priya. And really, it's a journey in terms of reshaping, resculpting Priya into someone who can survive and win in what is essentially a man's world.
So I'm Isha Menon, and I'm playing Priya Sengupta, who is a Bangladeshi second-generation migrant in London. And for me to play this kind of character, it's really interesting because there's a lot that is very, very similar, obviously the migrant background, but there is a lot that is extremely different. So she's a very, very different person to who I am, and that's what I'm finding really, really interesting to work with. What really made me really interested in the work was the fact that it was talking about things like sexism and feminism in the modern world, but it wasn't dealing with it in a way that I find it's usually dealt with in a very simple, black and white, easy way. I find that Melissa Bubnic doesn't use any kind of stereotypes, and she doesn't simplify the issue at all. So she keeps the complexity, and I feel like the fact that it's an all-female cast playing male characters, but different male characters, they're not all hyper-masculine males, they're not all hyper-feminine females, and yeah, I feel like that's where the grittiness and blackness of the play comes from as well, in that she doesn't simplify things. She doesn't give us an easy way out or a stereotype to identify with or a quick answer. She keeps all the grit and sort of ugliness and truth of that world, and yeah, it doesn't do anything to make it easier for people who watch it, and that for me was really, really fascinating to read.
This is a play written by a woman about women living in a man's world and what that difference in gender actually means and how it's actually played out, because as most people know, there is a distinction between sex and gender, what we are born as and what we perform to the world. And this play is really good at demonstrating how it's not just black and white. You see things all along that spectrum.
Do I prove you? Are you willing?
It really pushes that point of this is not a binary, it's not men and women. You're really highlighting the fact that gender is something that you do perform, and having performers actually play that out on top of the actual script is important because it highlights that point. But more so you do see, you know, how do people, this is exaggerated, but in the real world people are doing this all the time. Women are taking on masculine attributes, you see men chastised for acting too feminine, and so the play really, having an all-female cast, allows us to have a blank slate across each actor to perform along that spectrum.
When I first read it, I was very shocked by it, and I wondered if I would be able to live with these characters. But then you read the writing, and it's funny, and clearly it's taken from real life, but it's just pulling real life around in a way that's very theatrical, so it gives people a lot of bang for their buck in terms of the humour in it.
The moral landscape of the work is like incredibly thrilling to be in, because literally there are twists and turns in the story and plot, and we have no idea where we're going to end up. But these characters, they take us on this wild ride that really forces a mirror up to ourselves in terms of, you know, our behaviour, not just in the workplace, but in life in general.